It's time for this week's episode of Brandon Sports Talk, featuring in-depth interviews from those who are trending in the world of athletics. And now, here's the host of Brandon Sports Talk, Brandon Pate.
Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I have the privilege of interviewing the Aquinas College head swimming coach, Coach Kristy Hepp. How are you doing today?
Hi, Brandon. I'm doing great. Just waiting for move-in day in a few days and ready to kick off the season. And thank you so much for having me on to chat about our team and swimming.
You're welcome. Can you talk about how you knew that you wanted to get started in coaching in college swimming?
Oh, gosh. It's a loaded question. I'll try to keep it succinct, but I did not, long story short, I did not know that coaching was going to be my career path. I grew up absolutely loving the sport, but also played lots of other sports and actually majored in nursing while I was competing in Division III. I'm one of the most competitive people out there. And so I think, just being at the top of my nursing class and top of the competitive side of our team, I just always wanted to get the most out of myself, no matter if that was in my career or in the classroom or in the water. And so I actually was a nurse downtown in Grand Rapids for 1 year full-time, 2 years part-time. And in those 2 years of being part-time, I had the opportunity to coach for 2 years at my alma mater, Calvin. It was Calvin College, now it's Calvin University. So I didn't have maybe a traditional approach to getting into coaching, but that's kind of how I got into coaching. Realized I loved it. It's my calling. It's not just a job. Like, I wake up excited to go to work every day. And I'm realizing how rare that is for a lot of people in the world. And so I knew, okay, if I'm going to make this my full-time job, I better, get a higher degree. So I got my master's in exercise physiology. So I have the best understanding of like how to do training plans and all of that through the season. So did that at Western Michigan University. And then my first job after getting my master's was at Case Western Reserve. Had 2 years there, a year and a half as the full-time assistant. And then I always knew I wanted to make it back to Grand Rapids, because once you live here, you realize that it's an amazing place and you don't really want to leave. And so I always had in the back of my mind that I wanted to come back to Grand Rapids. My faith is very strong in my prayer life, and prayed very specifically for a head coach role in Grand Rapids at a faith-based school. And lo and behold, someone on the search committee reached out to me through Facebook Messenger asking if I'm interested in applying. And so within a week and a half, I had applied, interviewed, been offered the job, accepted, and here I am. And we're entering our 4th season now. So very excited to be here. And I try to keep it succinct, but that's the story of how I got to Aquinas.
What was that experience like, going to Calvin and getting to compete and putting on that swim cap for them?
I think my high school really prepared me for the college level. We trained like a Division I college team in high school. I'm from Indiana, went to Homestead High School. So I think it was a very natural transition going from high school to college. I actually probably trained more hours in the water and in the weight room in high school. So it was an interesting, like, usually that's not the case. And so getting there, I was impressed. It was a lot more specific training. So instead of everyone training the same workout and doing more distance IM type workouts in college, you really do get to specialize in like sprint, mid distance, and distance groups. So I think that was the cool part of like, oh, I get to train what I race more, which who doesn't love that? So very natural transition, and I love to compete in anything that I was doing at Calvin.
How was that experience like, getting to coach at your alma mater of Calvin?
Gosh, I think it just naturally has your heart automatically. So that was really cool. And again, it can be tricky because I actually swam with some of the people that I coached, and that, having that boundary, learning like, I'm your coach, I'm not your friend, I'm not your teammate anymore. that can be a dicey dynamic, but I had no issues because people had respected me as an athlete because I was working really hard. And so I think I naturally had that buy-in already. And so it was really amazing to be able to take the team further and just have that insight and understanding and be able to help right away rather than, oh, I have so much to learn. It's like, okay, I know a lot about the team and the school and the coaching, and so I'm ready to kind of help move it forward instead of maintain where the team was.
While at your alma mater, what were some of your biggest accomplishments as a coach?
Oh gosh. You're asking me questions I'd have to pull my resume up for. But it feels like so long ago. Some of the accomplishments, I mean, our men's and women's teams both won the conference meet both years, I believe, that I was there. And that was the same when I was there as a swimmer. The women, I think my senior year, it was like the 14th conference meet in a row that we had won. And then we sent a group to nationals every year as well. So, and, you know, set multiple school records, had several All-Americans. It's a high performance environment, and it's kind of fun. You don't really realize how great it is until you leave, and it's like, whoa, like they're really good. So lots of accomplishments on the athlete side. And while I was coaching there, I actually learned some of my coaching strengths. So it definitely is what propelled me more towards going into coaching rather than going back to nursing.
For you as a coach, what was that transition like going from being in the swimming pool to being on the swim deck?
You know, some people people would ask me all the time, like, do you miss it? Do you miss competing? I'm like, no, I I love competing, but I don't miss, like, I was ready. It was a natural transition, I would say. Because even I was older, I took a year off. I took a gap year as an athlete. And coming back, you know, like I was 23 when there were 17-year-olds on the team, and I was already kind of like the old lady taking care of people. And so I think it was a natural transition, and I get so excited for other people's goals and seeing them get to where they want to go. So I'm like, this is really a good fit. And you know, I definitely like to compete in triathlon, stuff like that, but I like to shift more towards helping other people than necessarily pursuing like my swimming, if that makes sense.
What was that experience like for you going to Case Western and getting to be the assistant coach there?
Well, it was an incredible opportunity. Being born and raised in Indiana and going to college in Michigan, you kind of are surrounded by a culture, especially with football, of like, you know, don't ever go to Ohio. So I never would have guessed. If you told me that I would end up moving to Cleveland, I would have been like, no way. But you know, the location was absolutely incredible. Like I loved living in Cleveland. It had all the things that I wanted. And Case Western is such an incredible academic institution that just the type of recruit and athlete that you would get on the team was just different than what I necessarily was used to. Just the caliber of, you know, these are top students and top athletes. And so they ask different questions, and they just really look more at the research side and are interested in that. And so it's kind of fun to geek out and nerd out with those athletes, and really, again, gained more experience in leadership, in, you know, season planning, writing workouts, and a lot of recruiting. I would say really took the reins with like being the recruiting coordinator. And I think by the time I left, I had maybe accidentally recruited 40 athletes to the team. So yeah, it was an incredible experience, but then COVID hit while I was there, and that's when I was offered the opportunity back at Aquinas.
What was that experience like going from being an assistant coach to being a head coach and coming to Aquinas?
Yeah, so I think I was I was so used to, you know, carrying out the plan of the head coach that I really felt ready and prepared to be the one who's creating the culture. And having that top-down approach of like, I'm going to bring my best every day, and I'm going to bring the best energy. And, people ask like, how did you know you're ready? It's one of those things where I'm like, you just kind of have to have faith and take that leap of faith. And it was so worth it. I have confidence in myself from, being an athlete, from being a coach, from being a nurse, of even if I don't know something, I have the ability to figure it out, and I have great people helping. So we can't do it alone. And I think that, I had really good mentors and a great support system to be able to make that transition. And it's always a learning process. Every year I'm learning and getting better. I think my athletes help me become a better coach in certain ways too. And, I'm reading up on new books and new leadership styles. And every year our team is completely different, but it's been incredibly fun and tiring because I started our team from nothing. We had no athletes, no facility. Like there was nothing existed until I had taken the job and moved over to Aquinas. So it wasn't just taking a head role, it was creating the entire thing from scratch, which was a very unique opportunity. And I'm so blessed that it's worked out, and that we're at this point going into our 4th season with a real chance to be, in the top 2 in our conference and sending more people to nationals and really accomplishing some big goals.
What has that experience been like, as you said, building the program from scratch where nothing was there?
I would say it takes all of you. It takes all of your energy. It takes just this vision and coming back to that vision. There are definitely days where you get discouraged because progress does not happen right away. I think, people these days might want that immediate gratification, that immediate result. That's kind of a myth that doesn't exist in life, and certainly applies to creating a new team. Building relationships, I think, was my first priority with the aquatics director at East Grand Rapids High School. That's where we train. She has just been paramount to our success with securing that facility, and just she takes care of our team too. She takes care of me. Shout out to Betsy Gransta. She's awesome. And so again, laying down the foundation of the relationships there, and then getting buy-in from the community too. Like people did know who I was a little bit, but since Aquinas had never had a team before, there's no alums to pull from. There's no blueprint really. And I think I really thrive in that kind of environment. Some people have to be told what to do, and these are the steps. That doesn't exist. And if that's your personality, like it's not going to work out for you. So I love creating, and you certainly learn from your mistakes too. So I think getting the right culture first is more important than going for the maybe super talented people, but there's something going on with academics or work ethic or attitude. I would much rather have the recruit and the athlete who has all the buy-in in the world, has the great work ethic, great attitude, wants to get better, that kind of thing. So figuring out the right fit for who I want on the team and how to distinguish that in the recruiting process too has been huge with building.
Being an inaugural coach at Aquinas, what was that feeling like stepping onto that pool deck for the first time?
If I remembered, I'd tell you. So I'm trying to remember the first day. I mean, I had been on that pool deck several times before. So for me, it's another day. It's like, all right, here we go. Let's go. Obviously a lot of pride, big sense of pride and excitement. But it just kind of felt like an adventure. Like this is the start of an exciting adventure, and I don't know where it leads. And that's super cool to me.
How is that feeling like the first time you got to do a swim meet for the first time as a head coach?
I remember that vividly. It was so cool to see everyone matching with their parkas on and their AQ caps on. and looking up into the stands, and the stands were full. And I don't know if you've been to a swim meet before, but the stands are never full. It's not a spectator sport. And I put a lot of investment in fan gear too, because parents want to buy t-shirts, and we want to get brand awareness out. So I definitely invested in that. And you look up into the crowd on deck, and everyone's in the collegiate burgundy with the AQ logo. And it was so cool. Our athletic director who hired me, you're taking a chance when you hire someone who's never been a head coach before, and to build your team. And man, it was so cool for him to be on deck and look up in the crowd and say, wow, like, you created this. And I just got goosebumps of like, oh my gosh, like, I didn't create it by myself, but yes, like, I'm so proud of what we have here, and we're only getting started. So I think pride was probably the biggest emotion, and just love of the athletes and our parents. Our parents are amazing. They travel to every meet, and we have more parents in the stands cheering for us for away meets than the home teams usually. So we have something special for sure.
Can you talk about a core subculture that you've started to build for Aquinas?
Yes. So I think in our sport, it can be a burnout sport. And, as a coach, I don't want athletes who are over the sport, right? So with our culture, it's a culture of excitement and gratitude. I would say gratitude for the opportunity. Not everybody has the opportunity to compete at the collegiate level and train and be with a high performing team. So I think if I'm not bringing the excitement, I mean, I do drink a lot of coffee too, so caffeine helps, but bringing the excitement and the joy of the sport and of competition to the deck every day. We train from 7 to 9 a.m. At 7 a.m., it's not that early, but sometimes college students can be a little groggy there. So, I'm going to bring that energy every day to pick them up, and then they get excited, and then that translates into the workout. And yeah, so I would say those are two big things. Also, just taking your academics seriously. In college, you're not majoring in your sport. Fun fact. Some people don't realize that. And it's about so much more than just the sport. Like, being your best in the water and on the boards is what we're after, but also being your best in the classroom and beyond, like with your career path. I encourage internships. I encourage having a job. I encourage, seeking other opportunities of leadership within our community and getting that well-rounded experience, rather than, you're staring at a black line in the pool for 4 years, and then you graduate, and then it's like, are you prepared for the workplace and what's expected? So I do give our team mental health days. Like, I treat it like a job too. It's like, hey, I want you to know I respect and want to invest in your wellness. And so I think taking care of yourself and taking accountability for yourself is huge, because as you know, high schoolers going into college, they're immediately kind of thrown into adulthood, and I'm there to help them figure that out. So having a culture where they're held accountable, to showing up on time, to the behaviors of the team, having a great attitude and lifting your teammates up. That's what I'm looking for too. And overall having fun with it. If you're not having fun with it, why are you doing it? Because it's, if you're having fun, people can tell, and just spreading that joy to others and using your talents well.
What does a typical swim meet look like for you as a head coach versus your swimmers?
So meets, we only get one home meet a year. We're often on the road. I get more nervous as a coach watching my athletes and cheering them on than I ever was as an athlete myself. So obviously I'm thinking about all the logistics, and like, make sure that we feed them, that they're mentally prepared, that we're doing proper warm up and cool down, and setting everyone up for success, and trying to make sure I'm watching all of their races. Like, if 5 people are swimming the 50 free, I can only watch one. And so making sure I have the support staff there to help and make sure everyone kind of gets what they need. And then the athlete experience, I mean, we go after it. We don't pull back in our workouts before meets. So I think our meets are, a test to see where we're at in our training cycle. And then championship meets, that is like all out. We're shaving, tapering, suiting up. I probably don't sleep that whole weekend. Just making sure everybody's optimized. So does that answer your question?
Who are some of the teams in your conference that you see during these meets?
That's a great question. So we're part of the KCAC conference, the Kansas Collegiate Athletic Conference. So it's spread very wide. And we just don't have the opportunity to travel as far because we don't want to miss class and don't want to miss training, to be frank. So we see Bethel University quite often throughout the season, and they're probably one of our biggest competitors at the championship meet too. And I have a lot of respect for their coach and their team. So that's really, really fun when we get to compete with them. Deb also started her team. So I essentially had her as a mentor when I started our team, just to help know what's happening and how the NAIA runs. And then Olivet Nazarene, they are incredible competitors as well. And so we see them, obviously at the conference meet, but that's our first meet actually of this upcoming season. So they're going to give us really good competition and experience. And those are really the only two in our conference that we see before the conference championship. But we get great competition with the Division III schools around us and the MIAA, as well as some of the Division II schools like Davenport will host us quite often. So it's nice in the NAIA, we really can compete against any level of team.
How's that experience like getting to see those teams like Davenport who are not in your conference, but you get to see often?
I think again, like we're all recruiting the same people. So it's fun to be on deck and see each other like, oh, you got so-and-so, well, I got so-and-so. And I have a deep respect for the coaches in our state that we get to compete with. And we share ideas, we encourage each other. And it's really a supportive environment. So I think it's really fun. Anytime we have the opportunity to compete against a better team, I take it because I think you learn way more from your failures and challenges than you do when you win and things are smooth sailing. And a lot of those coaches, again, like at Davenport, Justin, he started their team as well. So he was a big help for me when I started. And I think just having that vibe on deck of like, we're all here to be our best. Is really what we have at the end of the day.
What does that recruitment process look like for the swimming? And as a swimming coach, what do you look at in those prospective student athletes?
Yeah, good question. So the recruiting process, I mean, as a new team, we're constantly growing and looking to plug people into different events. And, I'll look at, okay, where are we strong? Where are we weak? What do we need to bring in? So it really depends by year. But again, I hit on some of these things with our team culture. They have to fit the culture. They might on paper have a great GPA and times that would score, but if I have questions about character or leadership, and coaches for the most part are pretty honest with me when I ask, like, hey, what can you share about so-and-so? And usually it's pretty good, but when it's, ooh, you don't want them, then I stop recruiting. So I definitely like to check with their home coaches. Work ethic is huge. Like, are they willing to do what you ask and ask questions and engage? Like, what is their potential? Have they had weight training? What volume of training do they have? Because, I'm more interested in an athlete who has been swimming for 4 years of their lives. They're pretty good and strong, but have a ton of upside and potential than someone who's been swimming 12 years and haven't really gotten much faster. I would say I do look at GPA first before I even look at times. If they don't have a very strong GPA, that's indicative of poor work ethic, and that I'll probably have issues with them going to class. And staying eligible to compete. So I look at that first. And I also look to see if they'd be a fit with our academic programs. because we have some great ones, but there's some that wouldn't work out here because we don't offer it. So academics, and then, obviously I'm looking for people who will get us to that next level competitively at our conference as well as at the national meet. And someone who just loves swimming and is positive. And I can usually read people pretty well when they do their visits.
As a head coach, what is it like seeing those freshmen put on that swim cap for the first time?
It gives me kind of a giddy feeling, because I mean, I feed off of their energy for sure. Some of them are swimming the 200 fly for the first time and they're almost in tears. And being that person to be able to encourage them and give them confidence, and then seeing them finish a new race for the first time is just such a huge milestone. And I think, they're nervous. It's, even though I'm like, it's another meet, it's their first college meet. And so it is so fun. We're lucky enough to have a strong junior and sophomore class as well. We only have one senior, so that's why I mentioned those classes, but he's awesome as well. So our freshmen have a lot of good mentors to kind of help them figure out, what to do and how to approach that first meet too. But it's definitely a fun experience.
What is it like getting to see those swimmers achieve those personal bests in their swimming career?
Oof. I get goosebumps, and it absolutely energizes the entire team. We're not just out for individual success. We're a unit, so when one person is doing super great, everyone can feel it. And it reminds me of why I do what I do. When I finished an 80-hour work week, it's tiring, and then being able to see results at the end of the day is just incredible. Like I'm starting to tear up thinking about it right now. I think PRs are really hard to come by, depending on how long you've been swimming. So when they do come, it's just such a testament to the patience and the courage and the work that they've put in, and just, again, being reassured as the head coach, it's like we're on the right path.
As a head coach, what is it like seeing them go from being freshmen putting on that swim cap for the first time to seniors putting it on for the last time?
It's a range. It's a range of emotions, and I realize I prefer to experience those like privately. Like I try not to cry too much, and because I'm an ugly crier, so like I definitely have a sense of pride, and I'm still texting. We haven't had many graduating classes, so I text our alums every so often just to check in and see how they're doing. But it's definitely a sense of pride of look what they accomplished and look where they're going. I got to be a little part of that, and it's really rewarding. And I think at the end of the day, I want them to see what legacy they've left and how it was about so much more than their achievements in the water. Who they were and their leadership, it leaves much more of an impact. And I want them to be able to look at that and carry that with them for the rest of their lives.
As a coach, what is it like seeing your athletes going into coaching after their swimming career?
Going into coaching, I would say quite a few of our athletes coach on the side, like while they're in school. Not many of them are going into coaching as a career, like who just graduated, but I do have a few who are going into coaching. And so it's extra fun because then I can say like, hey, I think you should read this book, or what are you learning in this class? And sometimes their professors will talk to me and they'll be like, hey, I have so-and-so in this class, and it's interesting to hear their perspective. And I think a lot of people get into coaching because they had a really good experience. And I'm hoping that's why, part of why they're doing that. But I think if you asked me that question in 4 more years, I'd be able to tell you a different answer, and that we have more people going into coaching maybe.
What are some of your future plans for the program so far?
Good question. Well, we're going into our 4th season as a swim team, only our 3rd season as a swim and dive. So diving, we added diving the year after we started swimming. So plans for the future, definitely expanding our roster size. We're going to get up to 60 athletes. Right now we're about at 50. So definitely expanding our roster because we have some really good talent, but I think we need to really add more depth and add that across all events, really. So that's kind of exciting to think about, continuing to fill events with people, whether you're a top scorer or you're 16th, like 16 scores a point, and trying to get all the pieces in there to be able to score in each event with multiple people. I think diving is a huge area where we can grow, and our divers, we had 4 of them qualify for nationals. We have a national champion on the 1-meter board. And so it's when people see that we have success, they want to come, right? They want to be a part of it. So growing the roster with those right competitive people who we can plug right in. And I would love to get to the point where we're winning our conference meets. And I think that's possible in the next 2 to 3 years. And scoring top 10 in the nation at national meet, not just because of our divers, but also our divers and swimmers combined. And I'd like to continue what we're doing. I think what we're doing now is working really well, and I think some of the fun things for me to think about in the future is more team bonding events, training trips, creating spaces for memories to be made, I think, so that people are making friends for life. It's not just about the competition, but at the end of the day, it's a competitive sport at the collegiate level. So and I'm competitive in the classroom. I would love for our team to be to have the top GPA in our school as well.
What
We're working
advice
on it.
what advice would you give those incoming freshmen entering their first year of college swimming?
Advice in general for freshmen, I think, is it's an adjustment. That's not even just swimmers. That's in general. It's going to be hard to go from home to a brand new community with brand new people. It doesn't matter who you are. I'm one of the most extroverted people. Like, it's a hard transition, and sticking with who you are, and making sure you're surrounding yourself with the right people who love you and support you and will say something if you're not making good decisions, who will say, hey, drop your homework at 10:30 and go to bed. Like, nothing, you're not gonna be effective. Your brain's gonna shut down and your body's not gonna work at practice the next day. So I think just the basics of self-care, because a lot of freshmen struggle with putting themselves to bed, with eating the right things in the dining hall, and trusting the process, because it's a new coach, new training system, new teammates. Give yourself grace. I would say give yourself grace, get lots of sleep, and after your first semester is when you really feel like becomes like home.
What advice would you give those juniors going into their senior year?
Ooh, I think a lot of seniors put too much pressure on themselves for performing. You don't have to do anything different in that sense. It's like, continue to put in the hard work. Something I always tell seniors is it takes you a lot longer to recover than when you were a freshman. And that's recovering from meets, recovering from workouts, and training sometimes does need to change. It might look like less yardage or intensity, or maybe they're shifting into a different training group. But I just tell them, I need your leadership. And like, the results will come. Make sure that you're doing the right things and setting a great example. But don't put extra pressure on yourself. Like, enjoy it. You should enjoy it, because this is the last time you're going to live next door to your best friends. And, college is somewhat the real world, but it's just totally different. So I'm like, please don't put pressure on yourself, unless you're someone who responds well to pressure. Enjoy it, do your best. That's all you can ask for.
What advice would you give those college seniors out there looking to get into coaching after their career?
I would say take advantage of every opportunity. anytime that you can learn something from everyone and don't expect to get paid for it right away. I think there's a lot of young people gunning to get into coaching who think, they're going to get paid more than someone who has lots of experience and maybe a master's degree. And it's like, hey, like, be patient. Like, you do have to put in the grunt work. You can learn something again from everyone. Reach out. Don't be afraid to reach out to other coaches and ask if you can go on deck with them and learn from them and be at their practice. Like, if you can fly yourself places, or if you're on vacation in Florida, reach out to like the University of Florida and say, hey, I want to get into coaching. Can I come be on deck and just be a shadow? Like, soak it all in. There's a lot of good online courses, and get the experience. Like, coaching all different levels also helps, I think, because it helps you hone in your skills of giving feedback and understanding the developmental level of certain athletes. So whether they're going into club coaching or college coaching, it is a little bit different. But not being afraid to start. You kind of have to start at the bottom rung of the ladder and put in the work, and then you'll work your way up.
What advice would you give those incoming assistant coaches looking to get started in being assistant coaches?
Will you repeat that?
What advice would you give those future assistant coaches out there looking to get into the sport?
Yeah, future assistant coaches. I will say patience. With higher ed, the interview process can sometimes take longer than in other industries or jobs. So I think patience with that. Making sure that they have people proofread their resumes. That's going to stand out. Making sure it's the basic stuff. Before you even leave college, it's like, have your resume done and edited, and make sure that you are marketing yourself well, and getting an opinion from someone who's been in that industry. So send it to a current coach. I actually have coaches send me their resumes who are looking to get maybe out of club and into college, or vice versa. And I think connections, just having the right doors open, and not being afraid to go to like conferences. I think coaching conferences, oftentimes it's more for the connections and meeting people and getting to know them, rather than necessarily the material that they're sharing there. So I think that would be a big thing. And as an assistant, like, you really have to have the head coach's back 100%. And even if you don't agree with things, like, share your ideas, with the coach, behind closed doors, and make sure that you have a united front on the pool deck.
What advice would you give those future head coaches out there looking to build their own program and build their own legacy?
Ooh, I don't consider myself an expert by any means, because I've only been doing this for 4 years as a head coach, right? So I think giving advice, it can feel a little silly at this point, but also, like, I have done it. I do have the experience. So rely on help. I think it can be lonely, but you're not alone as long as you're reaching out to people. So for example, I shared already that I reached out to other head coaches in the NAIA just to see, like, how did you do things? How does your scholarship system work? How was it creating the team culture? So that your challenges and things that really boil your blood or keep you up at night, when you realize everyone else has been through it, then you just kind of relax and understand this is part of the process. Nothing happens quickly, I think, in higher education, just because there are, you have to do things a certain way. And so making sure that you understand the processes and checking the boxes, that doesn't sound fun, but you have to be super duper organized. If you're not organized, you're not going to be an effective head coach. Communicate. We can all improve in our communication, whether it's like emotional intelligence, or making sure that the parents, alums, and current athletes all understand the expectations and what's happening. So I think, again, the more you communicate and share your vision, the more people are going to just like come out of the woodworks and help you. Yeah, so I think that would probably be my biggest advice, and have your network of people who you can share real things with, and not fear judgment or anything.
What advice would you give those coaches looking to bring a sport into a university or college and building it from the ground up?
I think you have to realize that you have to prove yourself first before people really believe you. Like, yes, you do have to build relationships first. That's how you get people on your side to really support you. This is the first season we're going to go into with a full-time assistant coach. And, to be forthright, this is how it works at most schools. Before I could get a full-timer, I had to prove that we were a sustainable team, that we could build it out and people wanted to be a part of it. And professors in the community really respect our team because they work hard in the classroom. They know they're really involved and just good people to have around. So I think just building a culture first and building those relationships and proving, like, understanding you're not just going to be given things. You have to work for it. And then ask boldly. But when people know you, believe in you, and understand what you're doing, then they will give you what you're asking for.
That's great advice. Where can my listeners find you on social media along with the program?
Yeah, great question. So we are probably most active on Instagram, and it's at AQ Swim Dive. And then we do have Twitter. That should be the same handle. And then, or sorry, X, not Twitter anymore. And then we do have a Facebook page, which is also AQ Swim Dive. And online, I mean, you can look at Aquinas and go to the AQ Saints page and find our results and our schedule and everything.
Thank you again, Coach Kristy, for your interview, and best of luck in your future at Aquinas as the head swim coach.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Brandon. Have a good day.
You too. You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Instagram at Brandon Sports Talk, Twitter at Talk_Brandon, and you can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again for your interview, and best of luck in your future.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.